I wanted nothing to do with the larger world. So I guess I had both experiences simultaneously. Yeah. There's the question right in front of you.
I just was curious to know why the last thing you read was so terrible.
You mean why it sucked, like a talent-wise?
Why you said it was good.
Oh, because I know. Yeah, no, it's okay. If you're from my family, that's like par for the course. No, I mean, I just know it's bad. Like, it's okay. Things have to be done to it that it requires more work. At this moment, the narrator's voice is too strong, the character of the cousin is too weak, and so I have to change that kind of tension. And, you know, that's work. That's work. Yeah, no problem. This side is a hand right here.
Hello.
Hi.
Well, I want to say I'm from New Jersey, and I was born and raised there, and I love the representations of Jersey in the book. I thought it was a huge Jersey shout-out.
Where in New Jersey are you?
I grew up in Islin in Woodbridge Township.
I know Islin really well. I used to work in Woodbridge Mall.
Oh, I used to work at Woodbridge Mall.
I used to deliver pool tables from the game room.
Oh, I used to, I know the game room. I used to work at the Tie Rack and at the Victoria's Secret.
Oh, I know where you work.
So my question was, so the book struck me because it, in many ways, combines sort of two of my loves, because it's written in sort of social and political history of the Trujillo regime, and it was also this very character-driven work of fiction. And I was sort of wondering what brought you to decide to combine those. I think sort of reading the book, it seems very seamless and very evident, but I think that for a lot of writers, seeking to combine those two worlds would not be something that's really evident to them at the outset. So I wanted to hear why you brought those together.
Thank you. It's a wonderful question. It's nice to have a Jersey person this late. Yeah. It's interesting. You know the young man who asked me the question about that essay set in Holland? You know, I told you I had a girlfriend, Dutch Jamaican girlfriend. You know that Dutch Jamaican girlfriend, her cousin is here. Was it cousin or niece? She's here anyway. She's like, yo, were you talking about Lisa? I'm like, yeah, I'm not making this shit up. Yeah, but that's a wonderful question. Part of it comes from the trajectory of writer that I always imagined myself coming out of. Yeah, I sort of felt like I was coming out of this African diasporic tradition, that I was coming from this sort of post-colonial tradition. I always felt that most of the books that I adored had a very strong political charge. Whether I was sort of reading Ceremony by Leslie Martin Silko, or I was reading Rushdie's Midnight's Children, there was this idea that it was possible to tell a story very critically about a community, but also probably what we would say a moment, yeah? And there was this idea that you could tell the story of a nation, in my case of a diaspora, but link it to a specific family. For me, that was the challenge. I knew that I could not write the classic encyclopedia, what we call the encyclopedic novel of Salman Rushdie's Midnight's Children. In India, like for the Indian tradition, it might make sense, the encyclopedic novel, because there's so much presence, there's so much. But for a Caribbean tradition, where the majority of who we are and what we are is missing and erased, I knew that I needed another strategy. Yeah, I couldn't pick that. So in my mind, I just thought it might be possible for me to exercise my sort of crazy radical progressiveness at a literary level. This was a novel in many ways, in all honesty, that was all the stuff I was told I shouldn't do in my MFA program. I was told that I shouldn't write a political book. Yeah, that I shouldn't write a kind of a three-generation sort of multi-generational family tale where like half of it is missing. Yeah, it's like a whole bunch of things. I shouldn't mix this kind of first person and third person the way it did. It was just all of these things were being told. But more specifically, I guess I just was trying to speak to books that I really loved. Midnight's Children had an enormous influence on me in a novel called Texaco. Books where the history of a nation was attempted to be told through the life of one family. And it's kind of a Faulkner, kind of a Garcia Marquez moment. And everybody wants to try it. You want to try your hand at that. I felt like, fuck, man, Santo Domingo is so crazy. Santo Domingo is in many ways the essence of the Americas. I felt like I was perfectly positioned to have a book that would speak not only to the Caribbean experience, but to the American experience. And it just felt like, why not? But, it took a long time because these books are really pains in the asses. The equilibrium is very difficult. Most people get it wrong. They either have too much character or too much nation. And for me, the balance is what took so long. It was handed all the way to the right. Is this a young woman here? Yes?
My question has to do with your characters. Why is it that people write about your work or talk about your work, seldom talk about that?
It's fascinating, right?
There are so many.
I actually think that's really fascinating. My female characters are almost completely left off of reviews. I mean, I think that the women are the ones that make this book. And I don't just think of it because it's my opinion. I think the book is constructed that way. I don't know. Again, I feel like people talk about Oscar in a lot of reviews and essays, and yet I feel that Oscar makes no sense without that terrifying mother-daughter team. Lola and Benicia, who guys, this book was done in 2007. Yeah, it's been 3 years. That mother and that daughter, I will have dreams where they're still screaming at each other. It's like, my mother and my sisters fought like that too, but I kind of condensed it. Yeah, I don't know, again, it just felt, in my experience, it was interesting the way my mother felt like she owned my sisters in a way that she didn't feel she owned me and my brothers. My mother had this proprietary relationship over my sisters' bodies that was very disturbing if you actually sat back and thought about it. My bodies and my brother's bodies were freer in some ways than my sister's bodies were. And I think that this is important in a novel that in many ways is talking about deeply, fundamentally, the after effects of slavery. And how, guys, what's wrong with Oscar isn't that Oscar is a nerd. It's not that Oscar, that's his problem. He can't get laid or find love because he's a nerd. Oscar can't get laid and find love because, like the rest of his families, he is a victim of the kind of sexual violence. He is the sort of inheritor of the sexual trauma of his mother, who herself was raped in a form that is very familiar to 500 years of Caribbean history. The fact that Trujillo makes Santo Domingo a plantation should signal to the reader that the rape that Benicia experiences in some ways is contiguous to the sexual violence of plantations and the whole Caribbean experience. So I feel like Oscar doesn't not get laid because he's a nerd. Oscar does not get laid because his mother was repeatedly fucking raped. And sexual trauma, even though we don't like to think that, sexual trauma passes down from the parents to the children. Not just from mother to daughter, but from mother to sons as well. We like to think that doesn't happen. We like to think that if a mother gets raped, the only person who's going to receive that intergenerational transfer, as the psychological term is used, is daughters. But sons are just as likely to be affected by parental trauma. So I felt like the women in this helped me kind of focus these things, and it's to leave them out sort of guts